Hello everyone. So this video you should be viewing on Tuesday, October 2nd. This video, let me make sure that's the right day because I'm doing this ahead of time. Yes, Tuesday, October 2nd. So this video is going to be over the Smithsonian article that we mentioned, or that I mentioned in the last video, explaining the assignment to you and going over that Poe introduction. So, remember we are in Unit 3, so I'm gonna jump into Unit 3. And when you get into Unit 3, we are talking, obviously, we talked a little bit about Poe, and we talked about a little bit about the assignment that you are doing. So what I'm going to do is open that Smithsonian article that we have mentioned before. And with that Smithsonian article, what you are going to be doing, remember from the assignment, is there's 9 myths or like legends of why Poe supposedly died. So you have to think in your mind, okay, there's one thing that I need to write about, or that I'm going to want to write about, that I think is the best reason for him, most plausible reason for his death. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read through this article with you. In the video. So this again counts as your live session for Tuesday. So that's what you should be doing at 9:15. You should be watching the video. And then we're going to go through the article, and I'm going to chat a little bit. Obviously, you're not in session with me, but I'm going to talk a little bit about some different things and give you a little insight, and hopefully we'll be able to by the time we're done with the article, you'll be able to get a pretty good understanding of what the article is about. So, the still mysterious death of Edgar Allan Poe. Was the famous author killed from a beating, from carbon monoxide poisoning, from alcohol withdrawal? Here are the top 9 theories. It was raining in Baltimore on October 3rd, 1849, but that didn't stop Joseph W. Walker, a compositor for the Baltimore Sun, from heading out to Gunners Hall, a public house bustling with activity. It was election day, and Gunners Hall served as a pop-up polling location for the 4th Ward polls. When Walker arrived at Gunners Hall, he found a man, delirious and dressed in shabby secondhand clothes, lying in the gutter. The man was semi-conscious and unable to move, but as Walker approached him, he discovered something unexpected. The man was Edgar Allan Poe. Worried about the health of the addled poet, Walker stopped and asked Poe if he had any acquaintances in Baltimore that might be able to help him. Poe gave Walker the name of Joseph E. Snodgrass, a magazine editor with some medical training. Immediately, Walker penned Snodgrass a letter asking for help. Dear Sir, there is a gentleman rather worse for wear at Ryan's 4th Ward polls who goes under the cognomen of Edgar A. Poe, and who appears in great distress. And he says he is acquainted with you. He is in need of immediate assistance. Yours in haste, Joseph W. Walker. So, he immediately writes a letter, because back then they didn't have cell phones, right? So he immediately writes a letter trying to get help for Poe, because, Poe's this famous writer, and they find him in a gutter, and something is definitely going on. So, little bit of backing up here. So on September 27th, almost a week earlier, Poe had left Richmond, Virginia, bound for Philadelphia to edit a collection of poems from Mrs. St. Leon Loud, a minor figure in American poetry at the time. When Walker found Poe in delirious disarray outside of the polling place, it was the first anyone heard or seen of the poet since his departure from Richmond. Poe never made it to Philadelphia to attend to his editing business, nor did he ever make it back to New York, where he had been living. To escort his aunt back to Richmond for this impending wedding, Poe was never to leave Baltimore, where he launched his career in early 19th century again, and in 4 days between Walker finding Poe outside the public house and Poe's death on October 7th. He never regained enough consciousness to explain how he had come to be found in soiled clothes, not his own, incoherent on the streets. Instead, Poe spent his final days wavering between fits of delirium, gripped by visual hallucination. The night before his death, according to his attending physician, Dr. John J. Moran, Poe repeatedly called out for Reynolds, a figure who, to this day, remains a mystery. Poe's death, shrouded in mystery, seemed ripped directly from the pages of one of his own works. He had spent years crafting a careful image of a man impaired by adventure and fascination with enigmas, a poet, a detective, an author, a world traveler who fought in the Greek War of Independence and was held prisoner in Russia. But though his death certificate listed the cause of death as pre, sorry, pren, Preinitis or swelling of the brain, the mysterious circumstances surrounding his death have led to many to speculate about the true cause of Poe's demise. Maybe it's fitting that since he invented the detective story, says Chris Simpner, curator of the Poe Museum in Richmond, Virginia, he left us with a real life mystery. Okay, so now we need to kind of figure out what exactly happened to Poe. And so these are the 9 things that are plausible reasons for his death or what happened before he died. So, number 1. In 1867, one of the first theories to deviate from either preinitis or alcohol was published by biographer E. Oak Smith in her article, Autobiographical Notes, Edgar Allan Poe. At the instigation of a woman, Smith writes, who considered herself injured by him, he was cruelly beaten, blow upon blow by a ruffian who knew of no better mode of avenging supposed injuries. It is well known that a brain fever followed. Other accounts also mention ruffians who had beaten Poe senseless before his death. As Eugene Didier wrote in his 1872 article, The Grave of Poe, that while in Baltimore, Poe ran into some friends from West Point who prevailed upon him to join them for drinks. Poe, unable to handle liquor, became madly drunk after a single glass of champagne, after which he left his friends to wander the streets. In his drunken state, he was robbed and beaten by ruffians and left insensible in the streets all night. So their first thing that they're saying possibly may have happened is that he was beaten. Possibly various things, that he met up with some guys and he was beaten by ruffians. Another was that he was beaten by another person mentioned here up earlier, that he was beaten by ruffians there. So if you think this is the way that Poe was killed, then you are going to write your paragraph here, and you're going to talk about why you think this is the way he died and provide that textual evidence. So the next way that they're saying he died was from cooping. So this is, others believe that Poe fell victim to a practice known as cooping, a method of voter fraud practiced by gangs in the 19th century where an unsuspecting victim would be kidnapped, disguised, and forced to vote for a specific candidate multiple times under multiple disguised identities. Voter fraud was extremely common in Baltimore around the mid 1800s, and the polling site where Walker found the disheveled Poe was a known place that Coopers brought their victims. The fact that Poe was found delirious on election day then is no coincidence. Over the years, the cooping theory has become one of the more widely accepted explanation for Poe's strange demeanor before his death. Before Prohibition, voters were given alcohol after voting as a sort of reward. Had Poe been forced to vote multiple times in a cooping scheme, that might explain his semi-conscious, ragged state. Around the late 1870s, Poe's biographer, J. H. Ingram, received several letters to blame Poe's death on a cooping scheme. A letter from William Hand Brown, a member of the faculty of Johns Hopkins, explained that the general belief here is that Poe was seized by one of these gangs, his death happening just at election time. An election for sheriff took place on October 4th. Cooped, stupefied with liquor, dragged out and voted, and then turned adrift to die. So, cooping was something that was very, very prominent back in that time. And so, what they would do, like they are saying in the article, is they would get these. Most of the time it would be like homeless people or someone, they would kidnap them, they would put them in clothes, make them go vote, and then they would get alcohol after. Then they would take them after they're done voting, change their clothes, make them go vote again, so they would have different clothing on each time they would go and vote. So that the cooping scheme is one that I have heard, obviously, and it's one that a lot of people think that happened. So it logically may make sense to you. It logically may not make sense to you, but we will see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and end this video. And if you would like to continue the Wednesday's video on for today, you may do so. Just with these videos, I can only record for 15 minutes, so I have to start another video here in a second. So, but the next video you're going to watch is going to be the continuation of the Smithsonian article, and it's going to start with number 3. If you, like I said, if you want to continue the article, you may, or you can stop now and continue this on Wednesday. And that will count as your live session for Wednesday. All right.